what psychological safety is a team dynamic where a group of people have a shared belief that it is safe to take interpersonal risks. And what I mean that I want you to remember out of today is that what we ultimately manage when we are trying to influence behavior in an organization is what we're doing is we're managing meaning. People do things because it's meaningful, whether it's conscious or not. An organization is a system of meaning. It's not a set of processes and procedures, although those can be meaningful. It's not brick and mortar. It's not, even necessarily, people's, the org chart or people's roles, although those things can be meaningful. We ultimately need to be thinking about how we create the context that's going to drive the behavior that we want by thinking about what's meaningful in the organization. So you don't have a fear of blame. So an interpersonal risk is talking about your mistakes and taking a calculated risk, doing something new or engaging in something that could lead to failure. And the lack of psychological safety is that presence of the fear of blame. What Amy Edmondson says is that our baseline is a lack of psychological safety that we always have in our groups and teams, especially when we get together, an underlying fear of blame, an underlying fear of rejection, an underlying fear of being judged or, feeling like you'll make it sound, people will judge you as stupid, or an underlying fear of conflict. We go into every social situation until we have developed a kind of dynamic with other people where we can assume that this is a safe place for us to take these interpersonal risks, because what we're seeing is people being vulnerable about their mistakes. We're seeing that people who are different still have an ability to speak up and their differences are valued, because what we're seeing is that somebody asks for help and somebody is willing to help them, and asking for help isn't shameful, and offering to help somebody isn't essentially taking away that other person's dignity or face. And then what we're seeing is open conversations where people are actually arguing with each other and talking about difficult things, and they don't actually hate each other. And blame is incompatible with safety. James Reason said it, Amy Edmondson says it, Todd says it, I say in it. It's just the way it is. Blame is incompatible with safety. The safety cycle involves what you all were just saying. You have to recognize our fallibility. We have to ask questions. We need to seek help. That drives curiosity about problems so that we want to learn from unexpected outcomes, openly share ideas, and through that open sharing of ideas, we get better decision making, we get better innovation, we have better learning agility, and we have better accountability, because accountability means, part of that means speaking up, talking about what you did and what you didn't do, and stepping up to say, this is what happened, and this is where I need help, or this is what I think needs to change, or this is what I don't understand. Right? That really is when we want people to be accountable. We want them to feel like they can talk about what happened, and that they can become responsible for doing what they have committed to doing. So let's say if you fall into the buckets of blaming others, an exercise that you might do is think of a situation, maybe even think of something that is you can do this for all of these. Think of something that's a pet peeve, right? Something that really annoys you. You tend to react out of proportion when somebody does this. You know, maybe they show up to meetings, or their workspace is messy, or something like that. A situation like that, that tends to really grab you emotionally. And then think about what narratives might come up. So if you think, let's say you're in one of the more of a blame others bucket, and a messy workspace really pisses you off. And so you stop and think, all right, I'm annoyed right now in seeing this person's messy workspace. What accusations do I have of a person who has a messy workspace? They are inconsiderate, they're they're careless, right? So you allow yourself to be as judgmental as you want to be. You're just doing it in your head. So, don't worry about it. It's happening unconsciously anyway. What you want to do is you want to bring it to consciousness to observe it. And so you start thinking about your blame narratives. Careless people are the ones who create the problems in this organization. So you come up with a narrative, a judgment there. When you bring up that judgment, then you can question it. Is that true? I mean, could I actually, if I looked objectively at all of the things, the incidents that we might have in the organization, is it true that the people who are doing them are the careless people? What if the opposite were true? What if the most experienced, the most careful people were the ones who were driving all of the incidents? What would that mean? Somehow, by turning it around, making the opposite of that judgment, of that narrative in your head, and seeing if, in what context might the opposite be true, helps you let go of this conviction that your blame narrative is true. And then it's an attribution error, absolutely, Brad. When I think this blame narrative, careless people, they create all the incidents. When I think this, how do I behave? How do I treat others? How do I feel about myself? So think about times when that was your driving narrative in dealing with someone. How did it work out? Did it work out? It could work. Not necessarily that it's going to work out badly, but just think about that. How does it work out? Does thinking this way align with my values, and does it contribute to the well-being of all? Maybe thinking that I can get rid of all of the careless people somehow, will that really contribute to the well-being of all? Or will that actually drive fear in the organization and drive them to protect themselves? And then without this thought, what am I like? If I'm not walking around angry at all the careless people, how do I behave? How do I treat others? How do I feel about myself? So the way leaders, and I'm going to get into this, the way leaders respond to mistakes, to unexpected outcomes, to problems, unexpected behaviors in the organization really, really matters. And the only way you can manage your response authentically is by actually paying attention to your blame narratives and your biases. We call those limited thinking patterns, and start to question them. You have to do internal work to be a leader. You have to work on yourself and your own mind and your own attitudes to be a leader, because being a leader means managing the meaning for everyone and learning to create some empathy, because it is empathy that drives high performance in difficult situations. situation.